How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my Week 14 recap video where I just go through all the NFL games that took place this past week and break down my thought process as to how I interpreted the games, how they went, and yeah, things of that nature. So I'll just dive straight into the first game here, which was Packers and Lions last Thursday. So this is really good game, really good Thursday night game. Couple good Thursday night games this year, which is kind of a rarity because the past couple of years it feels like Thursday night, ever since Amazon started streaming Thursday night games, it seems like they've all been a disaster. But so kind of a bit weird in a good way though to see a couple good Thursday games on the schedule this year. So yeah, this game was a really good game, back and forth game, pretty much a shootout. The first half, the Packers got like not much offensively, very little offensively. They probably should have ran the ball. I think Jordan Love only had like, I might be wrong, but I think he only had like 30 something passing yards in the first half, something like that. And yeah, so yeah, that described the half pretty well for the Packers rather. Lack of offense for the most part. Lions were playing really well. They're up 17-7 at halftime. Then the third quarter, the Packers kind of took over. They got a lead. Lions regained it back. The fourth quarter, both teams went back and forth. Packers looked like they were going to take the lead late with a touchdown. They got a touchdown and it got overturned, and they just settled for a field goal. Then the Lions, a lengthy drive, went forward on 4th and 1. Obviously, that's a big talk about the game. Super gutsy call by Dan Campbell and company that Goff tripped on the handoff to Montgomery. I thought that the Packers were going to take advantage, go down the field, score, win the game, but they ended up getting the first down, kick the field goal. Lions won. A lot of talk in this game about the officiating. Packers definitely, I think, got screwed on a couple calls. Lions, I think, benefited from some. Would it had changed the result of the game if, the calls went the other way or recalled correctly? You can argue that it would have. It's a what if scenario, so maybe a million other things would have played out differently. Who knows? Honestly, probably the Packers probably would have won, but again, who knows? Yeah, so the Packers definitely got screwed over by the officials. A couple calls in this game. Ford was hot late in the game over a call that they got called for earlier in the game. The Lions didn't. It was a crucial play in the game too. Because that was when the Lions trying to drain the clock out completely. Lions defense is super banged up. The second half, neither defense could stop anything. Packers got, I think, one stop on a 4th and short. It was a toss. Again, one of my pet peeves. I hate tosses and outside zone type plays on short yardage situations, and it got blown up. Packers blew it up. Besides that, I don't think either defense really forced a stop. The Lions they went into this game super banged up defensively. They're coming out of it even more banged up defensively. They had so many guys on IR, so that's probably going to be a problem for them in the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out there. Packers not really concerned at all. I think they'll be perfectly fine. I think they're a dark horse sleeper to win the NFC. But back to this game specifically. Again, the first half, Love in the offense didn't do much. The second half, he played a pretty solid half. Not a great game from a statistical perspective, but I think Love played fairly solid. Certainly not great completion percentage-wise, though. Josh Jacobs probably should, again, 18 is a good amount, but probably should have gotten some more carries with how banged up the Lions' defensive line was. Seemed like they started to try to balance it out in the second half a bit there. So pretty, heavy workload for Josh Jacobs. He did have 3 touchdowns. Should have had 4 if, again, they overturned the penalty that they probably should not have. Not have thrown, I mean. So yeah, Jacobs didn't do a lot from a rushing perspective, really, but he had 3 touchdowns. Christian Watson had a couple deep receptions in this one. Wicks, a couple of catches. Tucker Kraft, a couple good catches. So yeah, Jaden Reed, he screwed a lot of people over in fantasy. 0 points. Goff had a pretty solid game. The Packers defense, they picked him off in the third quarter. That's right. So they got 2 stops in the second half, I guess. Uh, Not a lot from a rushing perspective from both Monty and Gibbs, but a nice balanced workload between the two of them per usual. They both got a touchdown. Gibbs on a reception one. Uh, Jameson Williams had a good game. Laporte had a good game. Tim Patrick went off. He got 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra a bit quiet, but pretty solid game still. Bit quiet for his standards, though. Then again, Monty and Gibbs pretty solid too. So the usual balance there for the Lions. Not too surprised to see that. You'll get the team stats here. Uh, yeah, pretty. I think it might be a bit misleading because I think the Packers play. The game was obviously closer than I think these stats suggest. You look at these stats, you probably think the Lions won, fairly comfortably when it went right down to the wire. Literally a walk-off field goal, the last play of the game. Yeah, they had more total yards by almost 100. They had almost 100 more passing yards, only 12 more rush yards. Niners, or the Niners. I just got a notification with the Niners on my watch, so that's why I'm saying Niners. Packers rather had more yards per play by a pretty good amount there. First downs, Lions had 10 more. Third down, the Packers were not very good on third down. The Lions had a usual Lion game on third down efficiency there. Total plays, the Lions killed them. They almost had 30 more plays. Well, actually, they had 31 more total plays. Penalties not really bad for either team. Probably want to clean up that a bit though. Time possession, Lions won by about 13 minutes. So yeah, some of them are telling, some of them I think might be a bit misleading. Really good game. Kind of a bit hard to believe that the Lions swept the Packers. I don't think the Lions are going to win out and finish 15-1, but I obviously I think it's either between them or Cliff Kingsbury heads to see him on the sideline at UNC to believe it's happening. Yeah, Bill going to UNC. That's it's hard to believe. But anyway, what was I just saying? Yeah, I don't think the Lions are going to win out, finish 16-1 rather. I think they'll get the 1 seed. It's between them and Philly. It's going to be interesting to see which team gets the 1 seed. I think it'll be the Lions, but hopefully they can just start getting healthy defensively. Packers, obviously the Lions get the 1 seed. The Packers are going to have to be a rolled wild card team. Packers, I think, are a dark horse in the NFC. I had my preseason predictions have mostly gone to hell, but I had a Packers-Lions NFC Championship game. I think that there's a pretty good chance of that happening right now. If I had to pick right now, I'd probably say Lions-Eagles NFC Championship game. And honestly, I'd probably pick the Eagles. But yeah, would not be too surprised if the Packers ended up making a run to the Super Bowl. Very kind of under the radar. Same with the Vikings. I guess the Vikings are in contention for the 1 seed too, and I respect the Vikings, but I know something in my gut just tells me these two teams on with Philly. It's going to be one of these 3 teams representing the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. But anyway, I'm going to make a bunch of playoff content. Plan on making a bunch of playoff content as playoffs get closer. Obviously going to be super exciting. Best time of the year for football. But anyway, yeah, this was a pretty good game. Big win for the Lions. Packers shouldn't be too demoralized. They'll be fine, I think. Yes, Browns Steelers. So this game kind of went a bit as I expected. Well, actually, the Browns were leading. Yeah, at the end of the first quarter, they were up 7-3. They had a lead in this game. Winston hit Judy on a nice touchdown reception there. A nice throw by Winston on the run. Browns defense was playing really well at the start of this game. Still had a pretty solid game, they allowed 27. The start of the game, they were playing really well. And then the Steelers just kind of but rather settled in as the game went on. Well, I'm sure they adjusted, but they just settled in as the game went on. Their offense kind of found its footing. Their defense picked off Winston a couple times. Yeah, kind of another classic Jameis stat line. A bunch of attempts, a good amount of completions, a solid amount of yardage, 2 touchdowns, and also 2 picks. So a classic Jameis Winston stat line there. I was gonna say I'll just go to the Browns stats first. Yeah, not really too much in the run game for the Browns, although it shoved it to 4.4 yards per carry. Judy, again, I mentioned his touchdown. He had a solid game. Njoku had a lot of receptions, not a lot of yardage though. Then Moore, Ford, James Roche, those guys, some of their deeper guys got involved too for the Browns there. Russell Wilson, again, pretty solid game, only 158 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Najee got it going a bit. Jaylen Warren got it going a little bit. That's a nice 1-2 combo there with Harris and Warren. Cordero Patterson, my old guy from the Patriots for our Super Bowl 53 year. That was a 2018. Boy, I like Cordero Patterson. He's an absolute baller. Pat Freiermuth only had 48 yards. He was their leading receiver, and they ended up putting up 27 points. Yeah, pretty good balance there. You get Miller, you get Williams, Mike Williams, Jaylen Warren. So, yeah, pretty decent balance there, but not a lot from the Steelers receiving core. You look at the team stats here, you'd probably think the Browns won this game. They had not by a lot, but they had more passing yards, total yards, rush yards. The teams cancel each other out, same yards per play there. Actually, the Steelers had more rush yards. Browns had 5 more first downs. They were horrible on third down, though. Just like the Thursday game a couple weeks ago, I don't even think they converted a single third down, if I remember right in that game. Maybe one. I don't think they converted any, actually. 3 of 4 on fourth down. They had 7 more total plays than the Steelers. Penalties. Both teams probably want to clean these up a bit. More to the Browns. Time possession, literally dead even. 30 minutes and 0 seconds. Just exactly 30 minutes spot on the dime for both teams. So literally a perfectly even time possession battle. Yeah, honestly, I think Winston's picks were a big part of this game. I expected the Steelers to win this game. I would have found it hard to believe that they would have lost got swept by this Browns team A, and then 2 losses to this team within a 2-week time span when they know that they're the better team at home, and they're competing for the 1 seed. I don't think they'll get it, but their Steelers are competing for the 1 seed, so they really needed to win this game if they wanted to stay in that 1 seed race. Especially them and the Bills are tied record-wise, so that really benefits the Steelers too. I honestly think the Bills are going to get the 1 seed, even after they lost to the Rams, but who knows? It wouldn't be too far out of the realm of possibility the Steelers get it. Obviously, the Chiefs are probably favored for it now, being that they can afford to drop a game or two, probably. But anyway, back to this game. Yeah, kind of went as I expected. Browns started off hot, and then not necessarily hot, but solid performance in the Browns in the first half. And they kind of, I don't know, just this game progressed. You just felt the Steelers taking control. That's kind of how that game went. It felt like, oh boy, Saints and Giants. So this was certainly a game. Uh, I think this game was how most people expected, just a shit bowl, 2 bad teams, very low scoring defensive battle. I thought the Saints were going to get Kamara going a bit more. He only had 44 rush yards. I expected him to have there was a boosted bet he scored 2 touchdowns and the Saints won. I bet that, so of course that didn't hit. Carr got hurt. He's out the rest of the year. That obviously that's a blow to the Saints, but I mean, technically they could have made the playoffs still, but they still can, but obviously I really strongly believe they were not going to. So I don't think it's really going to affect the rest of their season like detrimentally like they were Super Bowl contenders. Of course they weren't, besides the first 2 weeks of the year. Anyway, Carr I thought, played a solid game, I guess. MVS, he had a solid game. He's been a nice pickup for them. Juwan Johnson played pretty solid. Foster Moreau caught a couple passes. Kamara caught a couple passes. So decent balance there from the Saints. Yeah, Drew Lock didn't really play a great game, although he did. The Saints were up 14-3 entering the fourth quarter. Giants got a. Wait, hang on. Yeah, it was 14-3 entering the fourth quarter. Giants got a touchdown 2-point conversion, made a 3-point game. They had a drive. They were driving down the field. Saints stopped them. They had all three of their timeouts. The Giants did. They burned them. And Drew Lock put together a pretty solid job. I thought they were going to end up getting a touchdown to win the game at the end. Obviously did not happen. They were going for the field goal to tie, and the Saints made a really good special teams play to block it. That was a really impressive play. Obviously, Darren Rizzi, special teams coach, so he was probably hyped about that, I'm sure, especially because he was ripping into his punter earlier in the game. But anyway, Drew Lock didn't really, what I was going to say is Drew Lock didn't really play a great game, obviously, but he, when they really needed to score in crunch time, he was moving the ball fairly well. He was their leading rusher, too, had a couple good rushes, had a big one, again, in crunch time, like their last drive or two. Tyrone Tracy didn't really do too much. He'd have a touchdown, though. Neighbors, consistent per usual. Bellinger, pretty solid. Tracy, pretty solid. Wan'Dale Robinson, pretty solid. Slayton even caught 2 for 27. So pretty nice balance there from the Giants receiving core. You look at the team stats here. Yeah, pretty similar in all the categories. Giants had outdid them with total passing yards and rush yards. Again, they cancel each other out for yards per play. Saints had 2 more first downs. Both had 5 third down conversions. Both teams. Giants went forward on fourth down 4 times. They got half of them. Total play, yeah. So a lot of these stats pretty similar. Penalties, Giants certainly want to clean that up a little bit. Time possession pretty close to 50-50. So yeah, this game, kind of when as a lot of people expected, just low scoring, not the best quality football. Though the Saints, that was clutch at the end, that field goal block. So this was an interesting game. So I kind of took the Dolphins to win this game, fairly comfortably, maybe even bowled the Jets out. That did not the Dolphins were kind of fortunate to win this game. The Jets, this is a weird game. So the Jets were like in control. Their offense is moving the ball. This is Rodgers, his first game, I think, since 2021, where he had over 300 passing yards. Obviously, he missed, pretty much all of last year outside a couple snaps with his Achilles and his torn Achilles. But still, first he put all of 22. So, and we're pretty deep into the 24 season now. So first time in 3 years, Rodgers has had over 300 passing yards. So that's pretty notable. And they lost the game still, of course, because they're the Jets. But the Jets were moving the ball well. They had control of this game, it felt like. They were up 13 or actually, sorry, they were down 15-13 at half. The Dolphins got a long field goal from Jason Sanders in the half. The third quarter, the Jets scored 10 straight, though. So then they were up 23-15 most of the fourth quarter. Dolphins ended up putting together a drive late to tie it. And the Jets were driving down the field. They got a first down to get in field goal range, and the Dolphins only had two timeouts, I believe. And I'm like, well, I think that's probably the game right there. And the Jets were kind of backed up on the edge of field goal range. It was like 3rd and forever, 3rd and 20 something, I think. 1 timeout for the Dolphins, 50 seconds left. So in this situation, and I'm not, I know I've solid amount about football, but I'm not an NFL coach by any means, but I think it's, you don't even have to know much about football to know that in that situation, you probably either want I understand they wanted to get a good amount of yardage to get into more comfortable field goal range, but in that situation, you're going to want to either just run the ball so to force the Dolphins to burn their last time out, or just run a passing concept that doesn't involve your receiver going out of bounds. And so what do the Jets do? The complete opposite of that. They launch it to Adams on the sideline, and he catches it, but he gets shoved out of bounds. So the Dolphins get to preserve their timeout. So as soon as that happened, I'm like, all right, yep, the Dolphins probably just won this game. So Zierlein ended up making the field goal. And so they're up 3. Dolphins got a big kickoff return. They ended up getting the field goal range overtime. Then Jonnu Smith, who literally did nothing the entire game, got 2 wide receiver screens. They got another pass, I think, off to Hill. and then I think they ran it once for a couple yards. Then they hit another pass to Smith in the end zone. He caught it to win the game. Dolphins very much needed this win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Uh, I don't think they're going to get the 7 seed, but they definitely. Who do they play this week? They play I think they'll probably lose to the Texans this week, but if they win that, look out. I think there's a very, very increased likelihood they get the 7 seed. So they definitely could with the Texans struggling lately. Going off the bye though, that'll be interesting. But yeah. So Rodgers actually he looked really solid. He had a solid game. Very little in the run game, pretty much. Although, pretty much 4 yards per carry. Brandon Allen's at 3.9 if you round up. No Breece Hall in this game either. So those guys did a pretty good job stepping up. Garrett Wilson, he kind of torched Jalen Ramsey. Devontae Adams had a good game. And then a pretty good balance from the rest of their guys there. I mean, how do you have Garrett Wilson and Adams both have over 100 yards and you lose? Like, and Rodgers having 339 with only 12 incompletions, no turnovers. That was just, of course, the Jets lose this game. Tua played, pretty solid game from Tua. Pretty much nothing in the run game for the Dolphins whatsoever. Tyreek had a good game. Jalen Waddle had a good game. A-Chain got a lot going in the receiving game per usual. He's a PPR god. Jonnu Smith, he did pretty much nothing the whole game until literally their last drive. He caught 3 of their 4 passes they threw, if I remember right. It's pretty, solid balance there from the Dolphins' top guys. You'll get the team stats here. It's like, how did the Jets lose this game? Great question. Who knows? Again, probably because of that they mispaneled the clock at the end of the game with Adams getting shoved out of bounds. I mean, even if you missed the field goal, at least you could have drained the clock down to like 10 seconds or somewhere around there. But maybe even a bit less. I forget exact. I think it was 50 something seconds left on the clock, so somewhere around that range, 10-ish seconds left roughly. Dolphins would have gotten the ball back. But anyway, yeah, Jets had more total yards, or actually the Dolphins marginally won the passing yardage game. Jets had more rush yards. They also had more yards per play. Dolphins had 5 more first downs. The Dolphins were not good on third down. They only had 1 third down conversion the whole game. Jets weren't great either. They only had 4. Total plays pretty close to even. Dolphins had 3 more. Sacks allowed. So that's Rodgers did get sacked that ended a couple of drives. So that was probably a big point in the game too. Penalties. Jets are going to want to clean that up. Dolphins they had only 49 yards worth of penalties, but 8 penalties. They're probably going to want to clean that up. Pretty close to even in time possession. So yeah, Dolphins very much needed this win. Jets just heartbreaking loss. They're officially out of the playoffs. Not that they were going to make it anyway if they won this game, but yeah, Dolphins very much needed this win. Not a great game from them, I guess, but they won it. That's all that matters. They played well in crunch time, so they very much needed that win. So good for the Dolphins, I guess. Oh boy. So like the Saints Giants game, this was certainly a game. Certainly a game. So the Titans were up 3-0, and then it felt like it was kind of weird. It felt like they were moving the ball well. They just couldn't score. They had a sequence where Pollard got a touchdown. Of course, I had a prop bet for Pollard to get the first touchdown, and he's on one of my fantasy teams. So, of course, Pollard gets a touchdown, and it gets overturned. And I'm like, my team that I have him on, I honest to God think I had like the worst day of fantasy like I've ever had in my life. And it was my team that started off 2-7. I won the championship last year. Even though I had like such a stacked team, I was 2-7 this year. Some guys underperformed. I had the most points scored against me in the league. I had such bad luck, and my team was putting up some guys putting up shitters this year. I won 4 in a row, and I had a 3% chance at the playoffs, and I was 2-7. I won 4 in a row, had everything that needed to happen. I'm pretty sure for me to get in the playoffs. I just needed to win, and my team that averages like 120, 130 something points per game, I think they put up not even 100, like 90 something. Like nearly everyone shit the bed, and I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, my point is, Pollard's on my team. He gets a touchdown overturn. I'm like, yep, that describes my fantasy day so far with that league. And I would have won $5 too. Um, but anyway, so yeah, that sequence. So Pollard overturned. Then they ran again. I don't think got much. And then I think from like the 2 yard line, they did 3 straight passing plays, and they got nothing out of it. Turned it over on downs. Titans were up 6-0 late in the game. Then the Jags got a field goal in the fourth. Titans punted it back to them. Jags got a touchdown. Titans were moving down to the red zone. They got stopped, used their timeouts, and they ended up stalling out, turned the ball over on downs. Jags won a grinded out defensive battle 10-6 and kind of a shit bowl matchup. My old guy Mac Jones, his picks were not fit. One of them when he was just he broke out of a sack and just kind of threw it up there. That was a bad one. But Mac Jones, not a great game, but if you take away the 2 picks, which I know you can't do that, but just take away the 2 picks, his completions and yards were actually pretty solid. He played an all right game, I guess. Tank Bigsby had a good game. He got the 1 touchdown, scored entirely in this game. Travis Etienne really didn't get anything going, although he did have 5 yards a carry. Brian Thomas had a good game. Etienne had a good game. Receiving, so I guess that's where he made up from the rushing perspective. Evan Engram, pretty solid. So pretty decent balance there for the Jaguars. Will Levis, I actually think Will Levis he didn't play great, obviously, but I think he played a bit better than the stats are suggesting here. Pollard had a big game, even though he did get that 1 touchdown overturned. Calvin Ridley, pretty solid game. Then Wiley, Pollard, Ikine. So yeah, Nick Westbrook Ikine probably screwed some people over with fantasy too this week. But yeah, so pretty decent balance there from their top 3 guys, and very much lacked after that for the Titans. Looking at the team stats here, I think they're pretty telling. I just kind of had a gut feeling as the game was going on the Jags were going to end up stealing it late. Yeah, so the Jags in more total passing and yards per play. Titans outdid them in rushing yards. Titans had 1 more first down. They had more third down conversions. All of 3 on fourth down. That's a big point in the game too. Jags only went for it once, but got it. Then pretty similar in very low penalties for both teams. That's good. Yeah, pretty close even in 50-50 time possession. The 2 picks from Mac Jones, the Jags probably would have won this game more, comfortably if those didn't happen, obviously. So yeah, this is just kind of a shitball game. Just very not the greatest quality of football, grinded out defensive battle. But I guess good to see that the Jags are still competing, and so the Titans. Falcons Vikings. So this score is probably a bit misleading. It was tied entering the fourth quarter. At the start of the fourth, the game was tied, and the Vikings ended up scoring 21 straight in the fourth quarter. And they were up 7. Falcons were getting the ball back, and they fumbled it, and the Vikings scored off of it. And then they scored a touchdown to really ice the game away. Where but they were on 14. They had to put together a solid drive. They were working it to the red zone, and Cousins kind of had a bit of a miscommunication with Pitts and got an interception. He threw a pick, 1 of 2 in this game. Kirk Cousins has been really struggling lately. The Falcons been on a 4-game losing streak. A lot of talk about should Kirk Cousins be benched. I don't think he should be benched yet. Even I think the past couple games he is like a 0 touchdown, 8 interception ratio. So obviously that's not what you want to see from your starting quarterback in general, but especially a team trying to win their division. But yeah, the Falcons, they took a lead early in this game. It was kind of back and forth. I was honestly a bit nervous the Falcons were going to win because I kind of went a bit bold maybe and bet the Vikings money line in a parlay, but they obviously pulled away late. Kirk Cousins, again, I mentioned the 2 pick. I honestly don't think he played, a horrible game. I think he actually played fairly decent. Just those 2 picks were not very pretty. Bijan got it going. He had a solid game. So did Algier. They both had a touchdown apiece. Darnell Mooney had a good game. Of course, I was going up against him in fantasy. Ray McLeod, I almost started him because one of my teams is so thin with all the injuries. I ended up winning anyway, but of course he had his best game of the year. Really consistent game. He's been very under the radar consistent this year. Drake London had a solid game. Pitts per usual, just a head scratcher game. Although if he did catch that touchdown at the end there, that would have probably redeemed himself there. Darnold went absolutely off in this game. 5 touchdowns. So did Jordan Addison. He went off. Yeah, 8 for 33 and 3 touchdowns. Jefferson went off too. Hockenson had a solid game too. So pretty good balance there for the Vikings. Aaron Jones had a pretty solid game. Cam Akers had a couple nice rushes too. But yeah, Darnold went off in this game. Only 6 incompletions, 347, 5 tutties. You'll get the team stats here. Falcons almost had 500 total yards of offense. It felt like their offense is on a really good game. They probably should have put up more than 21 points. They had 20 more passing yards. They had more rush yards. Vikings had more yards per play, though. But a really solid overall day from the Falcons offense, I would say. They had 2 more first downs, only 1 less third down version, although they did 1 more attempt than the Vikings. They got stuffed 2 times on 4th down. They failed to convert. That was a big difference in the game. They had 14 more total penalties. That was a problem for the Falcons. 12 for $127. That's not going to help you win many football games. Time possession pretty close to even though. Sacks allowed. That's one thing the Falcons defense has done well the past 2 weeks. They've gotten pressure on the quarterback the past 2 weeks and much improved compared to the rest of the season, where they severely have lacked at doing that. So that's a good note for the Falcons, at least. They do play the Raiders this week, so that should be a perfect opportunity to bounce back against a horrible football team with probably Desmond Ridder starting, it looks like. I saw maybe Desmond Ridder revenge game against the Falcons. Didn't even think of that. But yeah, Vikings competing for the 1 seed, which I don't think anyone really would have believed going into the year, but it's true. And no one's really talking about the Vikings, though. Falcons just lost the division lead to the Bucs. Bucs got a very favorable schedule, so the Falcons really need to start stacking up some wins here. They want to get into the postseason. I was just going to say something else on this. Oh, yeah, one of the Jefferson touchdowns, the Falcons DBs. Oh, Jesus. He had a rough time covering Jefferson. He I don't even know how to describe it. He misread the route, then corrected it, and then misread it again, ran in the wrong direction, he was running straight and Jefferson was more to his left. And then he went to turn and just fell. And that was as Jefferson caught the touchdown, or the pass, and walked into the end zone for the touchdown. Someone was saying that it's when your controller disconnects in Madden or you switch to the wrong DB when you're diving. I'm like, oh my God, that literally is the exact scenario. So that was a rough play on that poor guy's part. But yeah, the Vikings, really solid win for the Vikings. Falcons, oh boy, a lot of questions of that team right now. Panthers, Eagles, this was a very interesting game. Panthers should have taken the lead late. I still think would the Eagles have gotten in field goal range to win the game? Especially Elliott was having a shaky game. Who knows? But Leggett had an incomplete pass where he should have been an easy cash into the end zone. Ended up being incomplete. So yeah, this is an interesting game. The Panthers were in the lead for a good portion of it. And the Eagles, I think, entering the 4th, the Panthers were leading. Then the Eagles ended up getting the lead. And they ended up holding on at the end of the game. When Bryce Young had an insane play, backed up in his own end zone. It looked like he was going to get sacked for a safety. He made something happen, pulled something out of his ass, hit, I forget who. It might have been Thielen for a big play. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, the Panthers are going to win this game. Obviously they didn't, but the Eagles defense held on. Panthers been competing the past couple weeks with some pretty top-tier teams, so Bryce Young, even though statistically it's not great, he's been playing a lot better. There's reports that they're really looking at reconsidering keeping him next year. That I would honestly, if he continues like this, I probably would. Panthers defense is they are really struggling to stop the run though. But so yeah, Bryce Young, he actually had a pretty solid game in this one. Statistically not great, but I think he played a solid game. Chuba Hubbard got it going. good game from him. Thielen had a really good game. Then outside of that, not too much, but a decent balance. Again, I mentioned that drop, but he had 39 yards outside of that. Not a lot, really. David Moore had 2 catches. Chuba Hubbard, yeah, not too much from a receiving standpoint outside of Thielen. Big story of this game is the A.J. Brown Hurts controversy. A.J. Brown wanting more targets. A.J. Brown was on my team that I was talking about earlier that shit the bed. So, of course, he doesn't really have a great game. He only had 4 for 43 in this game. There was a play where he was wide open in the end zone, too, on a slant route, if I remember right. Hurts missed him, and he hit Calcaterra for the touchdown. So I'm like, of course, of course. So yeah, that's the controversy. AJ Brown saying they need to do better passing, and Brandon Graham saying that there's tension there, that they used to be friends. So now AJ Brown trying to clear the air. He posted a thing, his profile picture on Instagram is the joke. So who knows what's happening there? I think they'll probably be fine. I've said it in some of my videos that I've never really been fully sold on Jalen Hurts as a pure passer. I mean, just he 14 to 21, he threw for 108 yards. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns, but he only threw for 108. I mean, that's like, and it's not even an outlier. He's hit a lot of games like these the past couple years where the Eagles have been a juggernaut. He has AJ Brown, Smith. He's got Goddard when he's healthy. He is a super team, if not no compared to the past couple of years, but still a really solid offensive line. This year, he has a super team offensive line most of his starting career, and he, not regularly, but he puts up stat lines similar to these a couple times. I've never been 100% sold on Hurts as a pure passer. But I guess Hurts played he did what he had to. I guess he played a solid game. Rushing, he had a big run late that helped set the Eagles up. So yes, as I mentioned, Saquon had a good game, per usual. He went off. Yeah, Smith, Brown, so that's a solid balance there. Then not really much outside of that, though Calcaterra did get a touchdown. You look at the team stats here, you would probably think that, or I don't know, I actually think they're pretty telling. Panthers and more, no, not much, only 10 more total yards. They had over 100 more pass yards, 101 more pass yards. The Eagles outdid them in rush yards, though. More yards per play. Panthers had 2 more first downs. Eagles they had the same amount of third downs, but Eagles on better efficiency. Panthers had 3 fourth down conversions in this game. Penalties, not bad for either team. Pretty close to even in time possession. Well, Panthers won it by 7 minutes, but still, I guess a little bit close time possession. A lot of these categories, the Panthers won, so you might be saying that the Eagles are a bit fortunate to win this game. You can make that argument, but I kind of just felt they were going to win the game, even when the Panthers had the lead going into fourth. But yeah, not a great performance from the Eagles in this game. I get gritty Panthers team that's been competing with the top tier teams lately. But it's not the prettiest of wins, but the Eagles have been blowing some teams out, so I guess they were due for a game like this maybe. They ended up getting the win, so I think they'll be fine. Again, they have a really legitimate shot at the 1 seed. Panthers, though, it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep competing at this level the rest of the year. Really entertaining game in that one. Raiders, Bucks. So, yeah, this was a weird. So the Bucks are up 14-0 at the end of the first. It felt like they were just going to blow the doors off the Raiders, just blow this game or blow the Raiders out completely, win by 100. And then the Raiders defense settled in. They had a couple turnovers. And then they scored. They scored 10 straight in the second quarter, so it was 14-10 at half. And then the third quarter, the Raiders were driving down the field. It looked like they were able to get a touchdown to take the lead, and Aiden O'Connell had a bad interception. That was not a great interception. Then that fourth quarter, the Bucks. So yeah, the Bucks offense out of the first quarter kind of just really was struggling to move the ball consistently. And then the fourth quarter, when they really needed to, they ended up scoring. They had a touchdown to McMillan that really put the game away. Yes, the Raiders, they got a field goal. It was an 8-point game, and then the Bucks got that McMillan touchdown I talked about. So this was close. It was closer than it honestly needed to be, I think, for the Bucks. They ended up pulling away when they needed to. They're in the division lead right now after the Falcons lost. See, Aiden O'Connell got hurt. Desmond Ritter came in. Ritter, I think he did fine, I guess, for what he was asked to do. Um, did what he could. Thought he played decent, I guess. Aiden O'Connell, I don't think played a great game. He kind of struggled on this game. McCormick, the Raiders have been trying to run the ball lately. They've been getting a half decent run game established, or at least their attention. McCormick had a pretty solid game, 5.2 yards per carry. Pretty much outside of him, literally nothing in the run game almost. Michael Mayer was their leading receiver on a day where I needed Brock Bowers to have a great game. Bowers had a solid game, I guess, from a receiving yardage perspective, but he he only had one catch of 12 yards, I think, going into the fourth quarter. So that was, I think both his catches came. The game was pretty much over, or his two other catches, really. So that might be a bit misleading there. But so Bowers really showed to get involved in this game from the Raiders' perspective. He did have a touchdown on 3rd and goal that it looked like he was going to get it, and O'Connell slipped and somehow got through a pretty solid ball with the fact in mind that he slipped still, and there was PI on Bowers. So I'm like, I could have used that touchdown. It looked like he was going to catch it too. Um, from the Bucks, Mayfield I thought played a solid game except he did have 2 picks. He's been turning the ball over a good amount lately. Um, Sorry, I'm getting a text here. Mayfield has been turning the ball over a good amount lately. He's really going to have to cut down on those turnovers. Rachaad White had a pretty solid game, probably the best he's looked all year, honestly. Sean Tucker, he only had 3 carries. He had 47 yards. So that's good on his part. Obviously, 15.7 yards per rush. That'll work, I think. Cade Otton had a good game. He only had 3 catches. Mike Evans, pretty consistent game. Sterling Shepard had a pretty solid. He was really consistent. And Mike Evans, I felt like he kind of disappeared at points throughout. Then I think kind of came up late with a big. Right as the commentary team said he was quiet, he caught a big pass. Jalen McMillan had a pretty solid game. Then White and Irving got involved. 2 and 1 receptions from them. With the team stats here, I think it's pretty telling. The Bucks, again, it's a bit closer than it needs to be, but the Bucks certainly deserved to win this game. Had a significant amount of pretty much in every category. Yeah, in all these categories, total, passing, rushing in, yards per play. They had more first downs, but a 3rd down efficiency. Raiders are 3 of 3 on 4th down, though. Bucks 1 of 1. Penalties not bad for either team. Pretty good there. 4 sacks allowed on Baker. Bucks are going to want to get that cleaned up. Pretty close to even in time possession. Pretty close total plays. Raiders had 5 more. Yeah, I think most of these stats are pretty telling how this game went. Big win for the Bucks against a bad team, but took care of business at home. Could have been a trap game. Raiders are bad, but they had the potential to, compete with some solid teams, I guess. So yeah, good win for the Bucks to get the division lead. Seahawks Cardinals. This was a very disappointing game for the Cardinals. I felt actually fairly decent with the Cardinals in this game, and they went right down the field and scored like a 47-yard touchdown to Michael Wilson. I'm like, yep, here we go, Cardinals. And then after the Seahawks scored, so it was tied 7-7. Kyler threw 2 straight interceptions. So that the Cardinals ever since their bye week, they were red hot going into it. So maybe the bye just came at a really bad time for them. But ever since the bye week, Kyler has just been struggling, it feels like, in their offense as a whole for the most part. And the Seahawks are the complete opposite. They haven't lost since their bye week. They've been playing really good football, especially their defense. And difference in this game I talked about when I was predicting this game. I mentioned the Seahawks offense, it feels like it's just like intentionally trying to keep the game closer than it needs to be, like blowing opportunity after opportunity. I said if they're going to win this game, I don't think that can happen. And if they do, I think it's going to be because they clean it up. That's exactly what happened. Geno Smith had a really good game in this one, really efficient game. Charbonnet went off in this one. Even Kenny McIntosh had a solid game rushing the ball too. JSN had a good game. Charbonnet went off in the receiving game too. Metcalf had a pretty consistent game. Fant caught a couple of passes. Kyler, I mentioned, really did not look. There was a sequence in this game though where I think the Cardinals were down 17 they were down 17. They scored, got a 2-point conversion, so it was a 9-point game. Then they stopped the Seahawks and the Cardinals driving down the field, and then Ryland missed the field goal. And I'm like, oh yeah. But after they got that stop and they were driving down the field, I'm like, they actually are in a decent spot to steal the game here. But the Seahawks ended up pretty much draining most of the clock out. Cardinals put together pretty much close to a garbage time drive. They were in the red zone with, you know, like 10, 15 seconds left, and the game ended on a sack on Murray. But yeah, Kyler didn't play a great game, kind of an up and down game for him. James Conner, he got involved though, very much struggled, much like most of their offense. The first meeting, Trey McBride had a good game. Michael Wilson had, again, that might be a bit misleading because one of them was a 45-yard, 47-yard reception, I think. But I guess, 57 yards and a touchdown, that'll work. Martin Harrison, pretty consistent game. So yeah, James Conner, DeMarcado caught 4 pass seeds, so pretty nice balance there from the Cardinals. Look at the team stats here. Seahawks won the total yards, rush yards, and yards per play battle. They had 2 less passing yards than the Cardinals. Again, the Cardinals were down, like 3 scores for a good portion of the game, so they were probably in pass-heavy mode. Certainly more than the Seahawks. Cardinals had 3 more first downs. Seahawks were fairly solid on third down, pretty good efficiency there. Cardinals got 1 and 3 third downs. They got their 1 fourth down conversion. Penalties, probably want to clean that up for both teams a little bit. Seahawks won the time possession battle by about 6 minutes of your roundup. Well, you round down for the Seahawks, round up for the Cardinals, 2 seconds apiece. So yeah, pretty close in a lot of these stats. If the Seahawks were just in control most of this game, they certainly deserved to win. I was honestly surprised the way this game played out. I mentioned I was fairly confident with the Cardinals, so I was a little bit surprised at the way this game played out. But Cardinals are, pretty much, not mathematically, but they're pretty much out of the division race now. Seahawks, they really are a legitimate threat to win the West. They pretty much just have to win. I don't know. They probably just have to win like 2 more games, and they'll end up winning their division. Do they play the Rams? I think they actually play the Rams again, so that'll be a big matchup. Who can win? I think it's probably down between Seattle and the Rams, honestly, as to who's going to win the division. Although the Niners did look phenomenal this past week. But gonna be interesting to see. Not many people at the Seahawks winning the division, I don't think. I had them as a sleeper team. I think I had them as a 7-win team, 7-10 this year, but competing with some good teams, getting some close losses, just a really competitive sleeper team this year. I did not think they would be leading their division 14 weeks into the year. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Seahawks can win the division. Cardinals, they're pretty much just going to have to win out, try to get a wild card spot from this point on. Speaking of the 49ers, so yeah, really do not think there needs to be too much said about this game. The 49ers just completely dominated the game. There was a point in the game where they had like 200, maybe even 300 something total yards, and I think the Bears had 2 total yards. The Bears just looked absolutely awful. There was the second half, the Bears actually, their offense had put together 2 solid drives, and they were down 24-0. They scored. I think their defense got a stop, and then they were driving down the field, and Caleb Williams fumbled it. He just lost control of the ball, so that was bad. The Bears scored another touchdown after that. Dunze got both their touchdowns. The 49ers just completely dominated this game. They just moved the ball up and down the field, got whatever they wanted. Defensively, the Bears really struggled. Defensively, the Niners really played well. Offensively, the Bears struggled outside of the second half, where it seems like they kind of, hold some things together a bit there. Maybe the Niners took their foot off the gas a little bit. So yeah, Caleb Williams, I really didn't play that great. I mean, Completion-wise and touchdowns, that's pretty solid, but I really don't think he played that good of a game. Maybe a bit misleading there. The Bears offense just really struggled. Swift got very little going in this one. Uh, DJ Moore had a pretty consistent game, though. Dunze had a good game. I mentioned the 2 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, 3 for 30. So decent balance there, considering how rough this game was offensively for the Bears. Purdy played phenomenal. Poor Brandon Allen, his one pass was an interception. Isaac Guerendo had a really solid game. He got hurt, but I think he's good to go, I think, for tonight against the Rams. Patrick Taylor did fine when he had to come in after the Guerendo injury. Kittle had a really good game. He went off. Jennings had a really good game. He went off. Super underrated, Jawan Jennings is. Guerendo even caught 2 passes for 50 yards. Then Deebo Samuel, that's some more talk. He said he's not getting the ball as much. It's not that he's not open, it's just he's not getting the ball. So Shanahan said they're going to try to get him more involved. A bit similar to the A.J. Brown situation. I mean, you look at the team stats here. I think they're pretty telling how the game went. Niners just dominated every category. Let's see, did the Bears win a single category here? Yes, 7 sacks allowed in Caleb Williams. That's a problem. Yep, they won the penalty category. They had 2 penalties. Niners had 7. The Bears had, well, the Niners had 5 more penalties, and they only had 1 more total yard worth of penalties. That's what. Oh, and then interceptions thrown because Brandon Allen's pick, and yeah, pretty close to even in time possession though. But yeah, the Niners just jumped out to an early lead, 14-0. You can just tell that this is going to be a rough game for the Bears. The Niners very much needed a game like this, so they looked like the 49ers were used to over the past couple of years, just dominating blowout win. They're pushing to win the division. They've already played the Seahawks both games. They split. So they're going to need the Seahawks to drop a couple. That obviously it's going to help greatly if they beat the Rams tonight. So yeah, very much needed win for the 49ers in the fashion they had it. Bears are just, they looked, I thought maybe they'd look a bit better after Eberflus got fired. Maybe they come out with a bit more of a spark. They just looked horrible. Just absolutely abysmal game from the Bears. Niners much needed win in this one. Oh boy. Oh boy. So this was a fantastic game. Obviously a complete shootout. The Rams offense, it looked like they put on the Kurt Warner greatest show on turf jerseys in this game. The Bills defense played absolutely one of the worst defensive performances I can remember from the Bills in a long time. Just absolutely awful from the Bills. The Rams just moved the ball up and down the field, could not be stopped. Just absolutely horrible game from the Bills defense. And they completely let the offense down in this one. The Rams, even though they gave up 42, it obviously did not play a good game, but it got a couple stops at least. The Bills only got, I think, 2 stops I can remember off the top of my head in this game. And so, yeah, Josh Allen, obviously, a lot of people saying he locked up the MVP after this game. I don't think he locked it up, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns. He had a really, really excellent game from Josh Allen, obviously. He's their leading rusher. Pretty much nothing in the run game outside of Josh Allen for the Bills. Shakir had a good game. Cooper had a good game. Matt Collins had a good game. Ty Johnson even got 2 passes, got a touchdown on a big play, screen type of play. Curtis Samuel, 2 balls, got, Jesus, pause. Curtis Samuel, 2 catches. I was going to say he caught 2 balls, but even though I said that, I would have paused. So yeah, pretty solid balance there for the Bills. Stafford went absolutely off in this game. Kyren Williams had a pretty solid game, 2 touchdowns. Puka went off, it felt like. Cooper Kupp had a really good game. Tutu Atwell, good game. So it's really just those 3, honestly. You look at the team stats here, super close in all these categories. The Bills had almost 2 more yards per play, though, 1.9 more yards per play. Rams marginally won the total yards and rushing yards. I guess not marginally won total yards, 1 rushing yards, but not a marginal amount, but not a significant amount, obviously, only 34 yards. Passing yards, the Bills won that. And 22 more passing yards. The Rams had 3 more first downs. They had 11 to 15 on third down. That was a big difference in the game. Feels like third down, they converted every one of them. Penalties, both teams probably want to clean those up. Time possession, that was a big difference. Rams kind of dominated the time possession. They had it for 38 minutes. Bills only had it for 21. Exactly 17 more minutes time possession for the Rams. Again, the Bills' offense was right. Well, the block punt was obviously that got returned for a touchdown was a big difference in this game that benefited the Rams. But and then late in the game, some controversy. The Rams had forward on fourth down. They converted it, but it looked like they got away with a false. Well, they did get away with a false start. Otherwise, they probably would have kicked the field goal to go up 6. And the way the Bills' offense was playing, the Bills probably go right down the field and score. The Rams honestly probably would have gotten into field goal range when they at least have a game-winning field goal attempt after that, with how well they were playing and how awful the Bills' defense was. But who knows what would have happened. But yeah, the Bills were down 17 at 2 different points, and they scored a touchdown, and the Rams scored a touchdown. Then the Bills scored 14 straight, and then the Rams ended up. And then there was a 3rd and 5 that the Rams ended up converting. I want to say that there was some penalty on the Rams that looks like they got away with, if I remember right. But if the Bills would have sought them there, again, gone up 6, Josh Allen probably would have marched straight down the field and scored. But yeah, they got the touchdown. That pretty much iced the game away. The Bills did have all 3 timeouts, and they were right at the goal line. And they did get it was a penalty, but they did get kind of bailed out on a PI flag. Although it was a penalty, they got bailed out. It was like 4th and 15, I think they got the flag thrown on them. The Rams did. But the Bills had all 3 timeouts. And again, clock management. This is Sean McDermott has had multiple clock mismanagements in his career. Obviously, there's the big one, the 13 seconds left against or 12, 13. Why am I blanking? I think it was 13 seconds left against the Chiefs. Obviously, that won the divisional round. Thank God Joe Burrow saved us, though, from another friggin' Chiefs Super Bowl. At least an appearance. Then the Texans game earlier this year, some questionable clock management there. And then this one, they probably would have lost the game anyway, even if they had scored and saved all 3 touchdowns. But they did a QB sneak with Josh Allen. They had to burn a touchdown. I don't know why they did that. And Tom Brady talked about it in the broadcast that he didn't like the call. Bill Belichick talked about it too in his podcast, how he didn't like the call. Or maybe, I don't know, Belichick said he didn't like the call, but it was just a big play in the game there. I mean, I would have just gone pass to Josh Allen. Maybe just, I don't know. I just wouldn't have done a sneak, or at least do a QB power maybe with Allen, so he has some wiggle room instead of just plowing forward with bodies around him. He can't go anywhere. Because you get the touchdown there, you have all 3 times. You don't even have to go onside. You know that the Rams are probably just going to run it 3 straight times. So you can get the ball back with your offense on fire and a chance to win it. Rams, honestly, again, I think they probably would have certainly ran it twice, and they don't get it. Honestly, maybe they would have passed it. Who knows? Probably would have depended on the yardage. I still think the Rams would have won, but a big play in that game, honestly. So yeah, Bills, this definitely took a hit at their chance to the ones. I honestly think they're gonna get it still. And I plan on making playoff content. I plan on making probably it's the last week of the year. I plan on making last couple weeks of the year, I'll make a seeding prediction video. But I think the Bills are gonna get it because they play the Lions. Obviously, they can lose that. I think they're going to end up, spoiler alert, I think they're going to beat the Lions, mainly due to the Lions' injuries and coming off this loss for the Bills, and that the Lions are kind of overdue for a loss. So I think they'll beat the Lions. And then the rest of the schedule is they play my team, the Patriots. So obviously they're going to, bare minimum, win one of them. Then they play the Jets, should win that. And then they play my team the last week of the year. It's hard to beat a team twice in 2 weeks, but with the Bills really pushing for the 1 seed, they should be able to do it against us. Obviously, they're the better team. We're a bad team, but I think we're a bit better than, our record is maybe by a win or 2. But still, they should be able to do. So if they end up winning out, they finish 14 and even if they lose to the Lions and finish 13-4, I think they'll end up getting it because the Chiefs, they're 12-1. I think they're gonna lose to the Steelers and the Broncos to end the year. So they'll finish. So that happens, assuming they beat the Browns. They might even lose to the Texans. I don't think they will. You can even make an argument the Chiefs are going to lose to the Browns. I don't think they will, but so let's just say that happens. Both teams finish 14-3. The Bills will get the 1 seed because they had the tiebreaker over them. But anyway, not to get too off topic. So yeah, the Bills, their 1 seed chances took a hit, but I still think they'll win it ultimately. The Rams really, again, late in the year, really solid performance against can make an. I don't think the Bills are the best team in football. You can make an argument that they are against the best team in, arguably the best team in football. The Rams did this against. So kind of just up and down, inconsistent year for the Rams. Very much, needed a win like this, so they wanted to be a serious contender in the postseason. So Rams, going to be interesting to see if they can win. I think they're going to get in anyway. I probably will pick. If I had to predict between the Rams and Seahawks, I think the Rams and the Niners, I guess. And the Cardinals, technically are still alive, but I think the Rams are going to end up winning the NFC West. It's going to be interesting to see how, the division and even if they don't, I think they'll get in anyway. But very solid team win by the Rams. They needed this after just a very up and down, kind of head scratching, inconsistent year for part of it. Oh boy. Oh boy. So, not surprising that the Chiefs, what a surprise, get a lucky play to go their way to win the game. Now, I will say though, out of all the lucky plays they've gotten, this was probably the least lucky because it looked like the kick was going in anyway. It was kind of on the inside of the upright and just bounced on the inside. But honestly, even if it was on the outside, I'm sure, it somehow would have bounced on the inside, knowing the Chiefs and how lucky they are. But I really just cannot believe the Chiefs. They just every game is a 1 possession game, and I just have to imagine that they can only win so many in a row, and they've won almost every game this year by 1 possession. And again, they've played, even against bad teams like the Raiders. The Panthers are bad, but they've been playing a lot better. But still, the Panthers. What's another game? I really the only. Those are the only really bad teams I can remember at the top. Well, the Raiders again. The first matchup they only won it by 1 possession, even though they were up 2 possessions late. But just close games with every team. They keep winning all of them by the skin of their teeth. I just have a hard time seeing that they're gonna. Sorry, I'm getting a text here. I just have a hard time seeing that they're gonna be able to keep winning 1-score games especially in the postseason when the competition is, at its highest. That's my point. They're struggling to put away bad teams, narrowly winning. How is it gonna look in the postseason? And I think they're 4-1 against postseason teams, or 5-1 maybe. And again, the Chiefs, I literally could see them losing to any team in the playoffs, but at the same time, I could see them beating any team in the playoffs. They're a really weird team. I just cannot believe they just keep winning these 1 possession games out of the skin of their teeth. And yes, I hate the Chiefs. I hope they lose every game for the rest of their franchise's history, honestly. At least in the Mahomes era. I hate Mahomes, hate the Chiefs. But yes, of course, the Chiefs are an elite team. And it's not just 100% pure luck as to the reason why I think they're the luckiest team in NFL history this year, honestly, just on a single season basis with all their wins. But a lot of it is just them being elite, knowing how to win, close games and experience, things like that. But yes, I think a heavy majority of it is luck and just fortunate things bouncing their way. I honestly think they are a middle of the road team. If you take away every team's record, I would probably and I had no idea that their record, just based off of performance, I would probably put them as a middle of the road team this year, honestly. But anyway, back to this game. So the Chargers offense really struggled in this one. Oh God, Celtics team sideline. Who is that? Tatum and Brown, I assume. Oh, Tatum and Hauser. All right, so I'll be hammering Jalen Browns over tonight. Um, but anyway, so the Chargers offense did nothing the first half, got shut out. Their first drive, they actually so the first drive was like a 3rd and 18. They converted to Johnson. He made an insane catch. Then they didn't get anything really going after that. They were backed up in the goal line. Palmer had a action play around midfield. Herbert also missed Palmer. It kind of wasn't, I don't think it was really the best route from Palmer anyway. So it's on both them, but everyone's blaming Herbert. I think it was kind of a mix of both of them. That would have been a walk-in touchdown. The second half, though, the Chargers, they scored on every one of their drives. They scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. Then they got a field goal. As soon as they got the field goal, I knew the Chiefs were going to win the game. They were putting it a walk-off field goal and win the game. But they had to settle for a field goal. So the Chiefs offense, again, pretty much the same story all year. Up and down. It drives the ball through portions of it. It stalls throughout it. They look good. They look bad some drives. Pretty much the same. I'm going to tell you something. The left tackle position for the Chiefs, it's been an issue all year. It looked absolutely horrible with Humphries in there. And another thing, Mahomes, it seems like he runs into sacks and like he goes to step up and just gets sacked immediately, runs straight into a sack. That's another thing I noticed. Obviously, the trade deadline's over, so the Chiefs can't trade for anyone, but they really are going to need to get that left tackle position, tightened up there. And that's going to be a serious problem for them in the playoffs. So Herbert, I actually think, put a solid. He got knocked out a play. They had Heineke come in. He had a good rush. Heineke, that play, it was 3rd and forever. Herbert, I think, put a solid game. Not too much going in the run game, really, for the Chargers. Gus Edwards did get a touchdown. Palmer had a pretty solid game, got a couple 3rd down conversions. Sean Smart, he had a really good game, a clutch game. Not like from a stats perspective, he didn't go off, but he had a couple clutch catches on play action plays. Will Dissly got hurt, so that's why Sean Smart got a bit involved. Quentin Johnson had a solid game. Will Dissly, even though he got hurt, he got 2 for 19. DJ Chark caught his first pass of the year. If I'm being honest, I didn't even know DJ Chark was on the team. Mahomes, again, I call him mid-Holmes because he's played very mid this year. In the MVP talks, right, he belongs as far away from the MVP as possible. Does not even deserve to be close to that award this year. Sure, he's 12-1. And he's putting up the worst stats of his career, but you can make I guess you can make an argument just because he's 12-1. He's not putting up abysmal stats, but again, a lot of the reason why this team is 12-1 is because of luck and fortunate plays, I think. I do not think Mahomes has just not been very impressive to me this year. I think he should be as far away from the MVP as possible, honestly. Maybe top 10, I guess, but the fact that some people are campaigning for him is just absolutely ridiculous to me. Pacheco, a lot of rushes, not too many yards, but I guess solid from him. Then not too much outside of that. Kareem Hunt definitely has taken a back seat since Pacheco's come back. I think they split carries evenly. Literally, I think they the same amount of carries the prior week. Kelce didn't really do too much in this game at 9 yards a catch. That'll work. A reception. He had that 3rd down conversion to pretty much ice the game, set up the field goal that, of course, bounces in the Chiefs' favor. Xavier Worthy, again, D-Hop, Juju. So, again, not a lot from the Chiefs' receiving core, but I guess a pretty solid balance. You look at the team stats here. I think it's pretty telling of how the game went. Very close in all these categories. Chiefs marginally won all of them except Chargers. They had a couple more yards per play, half a yard more per play. The teams had the same amount of first downs, similar 3rd down efficiency. Chiefs had 8 more plays, total play charge, pretty close to even at time possession, close to 50-50. Both teams probably want to get penalties cleaned up. Of course, that's another thing. The Chiefs had some blatant holds missed on their game-winning drive. What a coincidence! And then, the viral clip going around of Kelce just pushing Derwin James, and Derwin James like, "You just pushed me," and Kelce like, "Yeah, I know. My route." So that's good to see that the Chiefs know they can just get away with whatever they want because the league's going to do anything they can in the power to make sure they three-peat. But yeah, I picked the Chargers in this game. I didn't even know Ladd McConkey was out. So when they when I saw McConkey was out, I'm like, okay, well, obviously I feel less better about it, but I'll just stick with the Chargers. And it didn't look too good at first. And then when the Chargers took the lead, I'm like, okay, yep, here we go, here we go. I even threw a couple bucks on the Chargers money line when the Chiefs went up 3-0, and I'm like, here we go. And yeah, obviously that didn't work out for me. Chargers will be fine. Chiefs clinched the division. Second time they've clinched the division on a field goal that has bounced off the upright. The first time they didn't have half their wins handed to them by luck. So at least, they had that going for them then. But yeah, Chargers I think are fine. Very little concern for me. I think they'll certainly make the postseason. Obviously, it's going to have to be as a wild card. It's going to be between them and the Chargers are probably going to get in as a 6th seed because it looks like the Steelers are probably going to win the division. And then even if they don't, the Steelers also have the tiebreaker over the Chargers because they beat them early in the year. And the Ravens also have the tiebreaker over the Chargers. So pretty much the loser of the AFC North between the Steelers and the Ravens, again, probably going to be the Ravens, if I had to guess, is likely going to be the 5 seed. So the Chargers likely going to be the 6 seed and play the 3 seed, which is most likely going to be, let me think here. Actually, it's most likely going to be the AFC North winner. So probably the Steelers, honestly. So that's kind of a tough draw for the chart. If they end up getting that 5 seed, though, I honestly probably pick them to beat most likely the Texans. But again, not to get too ahead of myself here. Chiefs, another narrow win by the skin of their teeth. They're going to be able to keep this up. They've been doing it this year. Are they going to be able to do it in the postseason? I could literally see them losing the first game they have or winning the Super Bowl this year. They are a very weird team this year, hard to predict. But yeah, Chargers again, zero concern. Chiefs narrow win, the end of the game. Bengals Cowboys Monday night game. So obviously the talk about this game is the blocked punt at the end. So the Cowboys blocked the punt, and I'm like, all right, well, that's game. Cowboys probably just won. And then one of their guys touched the ball, and the Bengals recovered it. And I'm like, yep, that describes this Cowboys season pretty. That was, thank God for the Bengals. I don't think they're going to make the postseason anyway, but if they have any chance, they're going to need to win out. So they probably would have almost certainly lost. Their defense would have pretty much needed to force a 3-and-out to end up having a chance in that game. Because the Cowboys would have just tried to drain clock, kick the field goal. So they would have needed a lot to go their way if they didn't recover the block punt to win, and they pretty much need to win out, have a lot to happen to them to make the postseason. So, very favorable that the Bengals had that happen to them. Kind of a back and forth game. Both defenses played, not great, but decent games. Cowboys defense kind of stepped up late, got some nice stops. Bengals defense, you can say the same. Burrow played a great game per usual. He did have that interception though. Chase Brown had a pretty solid game. Jamar, I don't know why they traded for Khalil Herbert. They're just not gonna. I mean, they don't really run the ball in general, but they really have not used him at all. Jamar went off in this game, got that touchdown late to ice the game, which honestly, the Bengals strategically probably should have played for the field goal. But honestly, with how much they've gone to go against them with, just very unfortunate losses. Then, 2 weeks ago, they lost the Chargers. They were down 21. They came back, and McPherson missed 2 kicks late. Honestly, I don't blame them for just getting the touchdown and be like, we're not even going to risk it. Fuck this. Let's just score the touchdown. We'll have faith our defense can stop Cooper Rush from leading a 1-minute drill, needing to go the length of the field. So honestly, I don't blame them. Chase Brown caught a couple passes too. Yoshi Vach caught a couple passes. If they lose Higgins, which Burrow said they're really trying to bring him back, and actually, apparently my team, the Patriots, is willing to throw everything at Higgins to get him. If they lose Higgins, I actually really like Yoshi Vach. He, I think, is pretty solid receiver. He might be able to, obviously, it's not going to be their offense trying to take a hit losing Higgins, but from a talent perspective, but Yoshi Vosh, I really like him. Gesicki caught a couple passes. Really, even bet T. Higgins screwed a lot of people over in fantasy. Put out a tweet that was like, I know, I know. Um, kind of laughing about it. His fantasy managers probably weren't, though. But pretty good balance there from the Bengals receiving core. Cooper Rush, I don't think played awful. I think he played a decent game. The interception was off a tip. Wasn't really a great ball, but it was off a tip. Rico Dowdle had a really solid game. CeeDee Lamb, pretty solid game. He was a bit quiet. It felt like at points, but still pretty solid game. Ferguson, Schoonmaker, Turpin, and, a bunch of guys caught a single pass. So, decent balance there from the Cowboys. We'll get at the team stats here. Yeah, I think that's pretty telling of how the game went. I was honestly a little nervous that the Cowboys. I was pulling for the Bengals. I still hope they can miraculously somehow make the postseason, but I was pulling for the Bengals in this one. I was a bit nervous if like the Cowboys were going to steal this game, but I think these stats are pretty telling. Bengals had more total passing and yards per play by pretty good margins. The Cowboys had more rush yards though by a pretty good margin. Um, Bengals had 6 more first downs. Neither team was very great on third down. The Bengals a little better efficiency there. Bengals had 6 more. So penalties. Bengals certainly want to clean that up a bit. Bengals won by about 7 minutes time possession. I guess 6 if you round up for the Cowboys, round down for the Bengals. So yeah, I think these stats are fairly telling about how this game went. As soon as the Bengals recovered that punt, I'm like, yeah, all right, well, they just won this game. And then as soon as Shamar got that touchdown, I'm like, yeah, they definitely won. But so yeah, kind of heartbreak for the Cowboys. They pretty much needed to win out to make the postseason. And well, they're still mathematically alive. They're gonna have to win out, I think. I don't think they will. But if they would have won this game, I think they actually do have a pretty favorable schedule. But if they would have won this game, they would have been 6-7 with a pretty favorable schedule. So who knows? Maybe they would have made a push. But so this is definitely a really heartbreaking loss to the Cowboys. Parsons was walking off the field like completely beside himself. A very much needed win for the Bengals to keep their marginal postseason hopes alive. Even if not, Zac Taylor might be coaching for. I actually really like Zac Taylor as an offensive coach and play caller. But if they have a losing record and presumably don't make the playoffs, he might be fired, honestly. Lou Anarumo, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him because he's had some pretty stout defenses over the years. But obviously this year it's been a complete disaster. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But my point is even though they might not make the playoffs, they might be coaching for their job. So they really want to win out pretty much. Which I honestly think is possible looking at their schedule. That Steelers game is the most concerning. I think they should honestly win the other games. Denver is going to be a hard one. They should win that one, I think. But maybe a little bold. I don't know. Yeah. So much you need to win for the Bengals. Heartbreak for the Cowboys. Got all the games covered. I think. Yep, got all the games covered. So yeah, pretty. Interesting week of football. Some closer games than we may have expected. I don't think we expected to shoot out the level of what we got with Bills and Rams. Chargers Chiefs game kind of went similar to how I expected it to flow. This was an interesting game. Falcons. So yeah, pretty even mix of some, not the best of football, some dramatic finishes, closer games than we expected. A couple of blowouts, not great performances in there. So yeah, some close games. So yeah, pretty good, interesting week of football. It's going to be interesting more and more we get closer to the postseason, see how the postseason picture pans out. Hopefully you guys with fantasy, you're all in the playoffs. I made it in 3 of my leagues. 1 leagues, I honestly think I have like one of the worst teams I've ever had. I somehow finished 7-7. I finished 7-7. My defending champ team finished 6-8, even though that team I'd scored with 300 more total points or something like that than my team that went 7-7. It's a much better team by far. Didn't make it. my 7-17, I'm in the losers bracket, but I have a chance to make the $100 back if I win the losers bracket that I my buy-in fee, so I can cancel out that at least. So that'll be nice if I can win that. But anyway, hope you guys made all the fantasy playoffs. Did you good with your picks? Did good betting? I pretty much just canceled out. From what I won, I pretty much canceled out from what I bet. So I guess it's better than losing money. But anyway, I will end the video here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna record a video shortly about Rams and Niners tonight. So my predictions for that game. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for watching and take it easy.